What if the greatest loss Libya suffered in 2011 wasn't the fall of its government, wasn't the death of its leader, and wasn't even the destruction of its cities? What if the real loss happened quietly, away from bombs, away from cameras, away from headlines? When NATO aircraft dominated Libyan skies, the world was told it was witnessing a humanitarian rescue. But while the world watched explosions and regime collapse, something far more valuable slipped into silence. Libya's gold reserves, not oil, not frozen bank accounts. Physical gold, measured in tons, guarded by the state and powerful enough to reshape Africa's financial future. More than 10 years later, that gold is still missing. And now, one man is forcing the world to confront a question it tried very hard to bury. Saif al-Islam Gaddafi isn't asking for sympathy. He's asking for records, for timelines, for accountability. And if those answers ever surface, the story of the 2011 war may look very different. This is where the truth becomes uncomfortable. Let's begin. When power changed hands, wealth lost its protection. Libya's gold did not disappear randomly. It vanished during the exact moment Libya lost control over its sovereignty. In early 2011, Libya still functioned as a state. Its central bank operated, its reserves were counted, its assets were tracked. Then the airspace closed, the government fractured, institutions collapsed in days, not months. As NATO declared control of Libyan skies, attention focused entirely on military targets and political figures. But behind the scenes, the systems that protected national wealth stopped working. Vaults were left without oversight. Banking authority dissolved, emergency financial teams arrived from abroad, and accountability disappeared with the paperwork. Libya's gold, once monitored, logged and secured, became a question mark overnight. When the war ended, no one could say exactly where it was, and no one seemed eager to find out. Why this gold mattered more than oil? Libya's gold was never symbolic. It was strategic. For years, Muammar Gaddafi had been pushing an idea that deeply unsettled Western financial systems. An African trade framework independent of the dollar and euro, anchored in real assets. Gold-backed exchange, resource for resource trade, no IMF oversight, no foreign monetary leverage. Libya's reserves were meant to be the foundation. This wasn't theory, this wasn't rhetoric, it was preparation. And preparation makes powerful enemies nervous. When the war began, that gold instantly transformed from national wealth into geopolitical risk. Once the Libyan state collapsed, whoever controlled the reserves controlled the leverage. And that leverage vanished, the night no one talks about. The collapse of Libya was loud, but not everywhere. While fighting dominated headlines, something else unfolded in silence. Communications went offline. Security protocols failed. Access records stopped updating. The central facilities that held Libya's sovereign assets were no longer governed by Libyan authority. No public inventory followed. No international audit was ordered. No official chain of custody was released. Instead, the world moved on. Which raises a critical question: if this was truly a humanitarian mission, why wasn't Libya's wealth transparently secured and returned? Humanitarian interventions protect civilians. They don't erase balance sheets. Who had the ability to move it? Gold does not disappear on its own. Moving it requires coordination, clearance, and protection. You need aircraft access, you need port control, you need diplomatic immunity. In 2011, armed militias did not have those capabilities. Civilians certainly didn't. And random looting cannot account for industrial-scale transfers. But one coalition had total oversight of Libya's movement corridors, airspace, ports, logistics. And when oversight becomes control, control becomes responsibility. That is why this story stops being local. Because once Libya lost sovereignty, the question of where its gold went stopped being Libya's alone. The return of a forgotten question. For years, Saif al-Islam Gaddafi stayed out of view. No media campaigns, no grand speeches, no accusations shouted into microphones. Instead, he waited. And then something shifted. He began referencing documents that had never been discussed publicly. He raised questions tied to dates, transfers, and security arrangements that existed during Libya's collapse. He didn't accuse, he didn't threaten. He did something far more disruptive. He asked how a nation's reserves could disappear without a single transparent explanation. Suddenly, officials grew careful with words. Journalists found doors closing. Statements became vague. That reaction spoke louder than denial ever could. The strategy of silence. When confronted with uncomfortable truths, power doesn't always respond with force. Sometimes it responds with absence. No audit reports were released. No timelines clarified asset movement. No institution accepted responsibility for safeguarding Libya's reserves. France shifted focus. The United States redirected the narrative. European institutions buried the issue under procedural complexity. Silence became policy, because silence keeps questions unanswered, and unanswered questions protect those who benefited. Why this story refuses to die? Stories disappear when they lack evidence. This one refuses to fade because the numbers don't align. Libya's confirmed reserves before 2011 do not match what existed after. That gap is real, and when gaps appear in official records, someone somewhere has answers. This is why reopening the gold question makes institutions nervous, because once records are revisited, other interventions come under scrutiny. If Libya's wealth vanished under international supervision, then every similar operation demands review, and that is a conversation no empire welcomes. What happens if the truth emerges? If Libya's gold is ever fully accounted for, even partially, the implications are enormous. The war narrative changes, motives are re-examined, responsibility shifts. What was framed as liberation begins to resemble extraction, and once that shift occurs, history cannot be edited back. This isn't just about Libya. It's about who controls wealth, who writes narratives, and who decides which questions are allowed to exist. Closing, the gold may be quiet, but the questions aren't. Libya's gold has not spoken, but its absence tells a story louder than any speech, a story about power, control, and what happens when African independence threatens global systems. By reopening this question, Saif al-Islam Gaddafi hasn't demanded revenge. He's demanded memory, and memory is dangerous because once people remember, silence loses its power. The gold may still be missing, but the world is finally being forced to ask why. If this story made you rethink what you were told about 2011, help it reach others. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so you don't miss what we uncover next. And if you want to support deeper investigations, super thanks and gifts help us keep asking the questions others avoid. Because some truths only surface when silence is challenged.